A small cat loved to play in the mud every day. Over time, everything it touched ended up stained with dirt. One day, its symptoms worsened and it went to the hospital with severe pain. After emergency surgery, the lives of all the animals changed forever. Before listening to this tear-jerking story, remember to subscribe to the channel. The sun had barely risen when Sarah opened her eyes, feeling her heart racing. It was the day she had been waiting for, her first day as a teacher at Lincoln Elementary School in the heart of Chicago. At 25 years old and with a fresh teaching degree, she was ready to change the world one child at a time. As she got ready, Sarah couldn't contain her smile. Her small apartment, inherited from her grandmother, seemed to shine with the morning light coming through the window. The walls, once empty, were now decorated with colorful posters and motivational phrases she would use in her classroom. "Today's the day," she murmured to herself, adjusting the delicate necklace her mother had given her at graduation. It was a simple piece with a pendant in the shape of an open book, a constant reminder of her mission. As she left the building, Sarah was greeted by an already bustling Chicago. The noise of traffic, people hurrying on the sidewalks, everything seemed to be part of an urban symphony she loved. She took the L train, observing the tired faces around her, and imagining how she could make a difference in the lives of her future students. Arriving at the school, Sarah felt butterflies in her stomach. The building, an old but well-maintained construction, was a bit intimidating. She took a deep breath and entered, being greeted by Mrs. Thompson, the principal, a lady with grey hair and a welcoming smile. "Welcome, Sarah. We've been eagerly awaiting your arrival," said Mrs. Thompson, guiding her through the corridors. "Your classroom is 3B. They're third-grade children, full of energy and curiosity." As she entered the classroom, Sarah was surprised. The desks were messy, there were papers on the floor, and the walls urgently needed a new coat of paint. But instead of discouragement, she felt a wave of determination. "I'm going to transform this place," she thought. As she organized her things, she heard a knock on the door. It was Mike, the physical education teacher, a tall guy with an easy smile. "Hi, you must be the new teacher." "I'm Mike," he introduced himself, extending his hand. "If you need anything, just let me know." Sarah felt her cheeks flush slightly. There was something about Mike's relaxed manner that immediately captivated her. "Thank you, Mike. I'm Sarah. I think I'm going to need a lot of help around here," she replied, looking around. "Don't worry," he smiled. "We'll figure it out. This school has its challenges, but it also has a lot of heart." Before they could continue the conversation, the bell rang. Mike said goodbye with a wave, leaving Sarah with butterflies in her stomach, a mix of anxiety about the first day of class and something else she didn't quite know how to define. Soon the children started coming in. They were curious faces, some shy, others smiling. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility. Among them, a boy caught her attention. He seemed older than the others, with a distant look and a defensive posture. "Good morning, class," Sarah began, her voice trembling with emotion. "My name is Sarah, and I'll be your teacher this year." "I'm very happy to meet all of you." The children responded with a disorganized chorus of "Good morning," some more enthusiastic than others. The boy who had caught her attention remained silent, looking out the window. Sarah started an introduction activity, asking each student to say their name and something they liked to do. When it was the quiet boy's turn, he just mumbled, "Jake, I like to be alone." The response caught Sarah by surprise. There was something in Jake's voice, a mixture of sadness and challenge, that touched her heart. At that moment, she made a silent promise to herself. She would understand what was going on with that boy and help him open up. The rest of the morning flew by. Sarah found herself completely absorbed in the children's universe, their curious questions, their contagious laughter. But her thoughts kept returning to Jake and his mystery. During the break, while the children played in the schoolyard, Sarah took the opportunity to talk with other teachers. That's when she discovered that Jake was repeating the grade, known for being problematic and having learning difficulties. "He's a lost cause," commented an older teacher with a sigh of resignation. "We've tried everything." But Sarah couldn't accept that. In her heart, she believed there were no lost causes, only approaches that hadn't worked yet. At the end of the day, exhausted but fulfilled, Sarah was tidying up her things when Mike appeared again. "So, how was your first day?" he asked, leaning on the doorframe. Sarah couldn't contain a smile. It was intense, wonderful and scary at the same time. Mike laughed. Welcome to the world of teaching. Want to grab a coffee? I know a great place nearby. For a moment, Sarah hesitated. There was so much to plan, so many ideas bubbling in her mind, but something about Mike's invitation attracted her. Sure, why not? She replied, surprising herself. As they left the school together, Sarah felt she was on the brink of something important. She couldn't explain it, but she had the feeling that this first day was just the beginning of a journey that would change her life forever. What she didn't imagine was that this journey would lead her down paths that would test not only her vocation as a teacher, but also her heart and her deepest convictions. Sarah, Mike, and the mysterious Jake's story was just beginning, and the twists and turns that awaited them promised to shake the foundations of that small school in the heart of Chicago. The following weeks passed like a whirlwind for Sarah. Each day brought new challenges and small victories that made her fall even more in love with her profession. However, two things remained constant in her thoughts: the enigmatic Jake and the charming Mike. Jake continued to be a mystery. Despite Sarah's efforts, the boy maintained a wall around himself. She noticed, however, small changes: a curious look when she explained something new, an almost smile when she praised his work. They were crumbs, but Sarah clung to them with hope. On a Friday afternoon, as the students were preparing to leave, Sarah noticed that Jake stayed behind pretending to organize his backpack. When everyone left, he timidly approached her desk. "Ms. Sarah," he began hesitantly, I really like drawing." Sarah felt her heart race. It was the first time Jake had initiated a conversation. "That's great, Jake. Would you like to show me some of your drawings?" The boy nodded, pulling out a worn notebook from his backpack. As she opened it, Sarah was amazed. The pages were filled with incredible drawings, detailed landscapes, expressive animals, and even portraits of classmates. "Jake, this is incredible!" Sarah exclaimed, genuinely impressed. "You have an extraordinary talent." The boy's face lit up with a shy smile, the first Sarah had seen. "You really think so?" "I'm sure of it." "Have you thought about showing this to the art teacher?" Jake's smile disappeared. "No, the other boys say drawing is for girls." Sarah felt a pang in her heart. "Jake, there's no such thing as for girls or for boys. Art is for everyone. You have a gift, and it would be a shame not to share it with the world." At that moment, an idea popped into Sarah's mind. "How about we do a special project? We could create a mural at the school with your drawings." Jake's eyes widened, a mixture of fear and excitement. "But what if no one likes it?" "I'm sure everyone will love it," Sarah reassured him. "And you know what? I'm going to ask Mr. Mike for help. He's great at organizing events at the school." As she mentioned Mike, Sarah felt her cheeks flush slightly. In the past few weeks, the two had grown closer. Coffee after classes had become a habit, and Sarah found herself looking forward to these moments. The next day, a sunny Saturday, Sarah met Mike at the park near the school. She explained her idea about Jake's mural, and Mike listened attentively, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. "Sarah, that's brilliant," he exclaimed. "We can do even better. How about organizing a small art fair? Jake could be the main artist, but we could include works from other students too." Mike's excitement was contagious. As they discussed the details walking through the park, Sarah felt a growing connection between them. It wasn't just about the project. There was something more, a harmony that went beyond the professional. As they talked, Sarah noticed a group of children playing near an artificial lake. Among them, she recognized some of her students. Suddenly, a scream cut through the air. One of the children had slipped and fallen into the water. Without hesitation, Mike ran towards the lake, jumping into the water to rescue the child. Sarah followed him, her heart in her throat. Seconds later, which seemed like an eternity, Mike emerged with the child in his arms, both coughing and panting. Sarah helped to get the child out of the water, wrapping her in her jacket. It was Emily, one of her students. "It's all right, Emily, you're safe now," Sarah comforted her while Mike got out of the water. The incident attracted the attention of everyone in the park. Parents ran to check if everything was okay, profusely thanking Mike. Sarah watched amazed as he handled the situation with calmness and kindness. When the commotion died down and Emily was taken home by her parents, Sarah and Mike found themselves alone again. She looked at him, still wet and panting, and felt something change inside her. "You were amazing," she said, her voice soft. Mike smiled, running his hand through his wet hair. "I just did what anyone would do." At that moment, with the sun setting in the background, Sarah realized she was falling in love. It wasn't just Mike's courage, but his kindness, his commitment to the children, his passion for teaching. Everything about him attracted her in a way she had never experienced before. "I guess we need to reschedule our planning meeting," Mike joked, looking at his soaked clothes. Sarah laughed, feeling light despite the scare. "How about tomorrow? We can have coffee and continue planning the art fair." "Perfect," Mike agreed, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made Sarah's heart skip a beat. As they walked back, animatedly talking about their plans for the fair and how it could help Jake, Sarah felt a wave of optimism. She was making a difference in her students' lives, especially Jake's, and at the same time discovering new feelings for Mike. What Sarah didn't know was that the challenges she would face in the coming days would test not only her determination as a teacher, but also her newly discovered feelings. The art fair would be just the beginning of a series of events that would change the course of her life and the small school community forever. The day of the art fair finally arrived, bringing with it a mix of anticipation and nervousness. Sarah arrived early at the school, her heart racing as she saw the transformed schoolyard. Colorful panels proudly displayed the students' works, but the undeniable highlight was the central mural, reserved for Jake's works. As she arranged the final details, Sarah couldn't help but smile as she remembered the past few weeks. The change in Jake was remarkable. The once withdrawn boy now spent breaks drawing, sharing his art with curious classmates. His confidence grew each day, reflected not only in his drawings but also in his academic performance. "Is everything ready?" Mike's voice pulled her from her thoughts. He approached, carrying a box with last-minute materials. "Almost," Sarah replied, feeling the now familiar butterflies in her stomach at the sight of him. "I'm just a little worried. Jake hasn't arrived yet." Mike put a comforting hand on her shoulder. "He'll show up. You've done an amazing job with him, Sarah. With all of them, actually." Mike's simple gesture sent a shiver down her spine. In recent days, the two had grown even closer, working together on preparations for the fair. Every look, every accidental touch seemed charged with greater meaning that neither dared to name. As the gates opened and the first visitors began to arrive, Sarah's anxiety increased. Parents, students, and community members filled the schoolyard, admiring the displayed works. The buzz of excited voices filled the air, but Jake was still absent. That's when Sarah saw him. Jake was standing at the entrance, firmly holding the hand of a woman she recognized as his mother. The boy looked hesitant, almost frightened. Sarah approached, smiling warmly. "Jake, I'm so glad you came. Everyone's eager to see your drawings." Jake's mother, a tired-looking woman, looked at Sarah with a mixture of gratitude and concern. "Ms. Sarah, Jake talks about you a lot. I wanted to thank you for everything you've done for him." There was something in the woman's voice, an underlying tension, that intrigued Sarah. Before she could respond, Jake tugged at her hand, eager to show his drawings. The rest of the afternoon passed in a whirlwind of emotions, seeing Jake's face light up with praise, observing the admiration in the visitors' eyes, feeling the pride emanating from her fellow teachers. All of this made Sarah feel truly fulfilled. However, one moment in particular was etched in her memory. During a quieter moment, she noticed Jake's mother talking in a low voice with Mrs. Thompson, the principal. The two seemed tense, exchanging worried glances in the boy's direction. Intrigued and a bit apprehensive, Sarah approached Mike, who was helping some children with a painting activity. "Mike," she whispered, using the nickname she had unconsciously started using, "did you notice anything strange about Jake's mom?" Mike frowned, looking in the direction Sarah indicated. "Now that you mention it, she seems nervous. Do you think something happened?" Before Sarah could answer, Mrs. Thompson called her with a discreet gesture. With a heavy heart, she excused herself to Mike and headed to the principal's office, where Jake's mother was already waiting. The conversation that followed left Sarah stunned. Jake's mother, between contained tears, revealed that the family was going through extreme financial difficulties. Jake's father had lost his job months ago and, unable to cope with the situation, had abandoned the family. They were about to be evicted from their home. "Jake doesn't know any of this," the mother explained, her voice choked. "I didn't have the courage to tell him. He's already suffered so much. And now, seeing how happy he is here with his drawings, I don't know what to do." Sarah felt her heart break. Suddenly, Jake's withdrawn behavior, his reluctance to open up, it all made sense. She looked at Mrs. Thompson, seeking guidance. The principal sighed heavily. "Unfortunately, our school has limited resources, but maybe we can think of some way to help." At that moment, an idea began to form in Sarah's mind. It was risky, maybe even naive, but she knew she had to try. "What if we organized an auction?" she suggested, her voice gaining strength as she developed the thought. "We could auction off some of Jake's drawings. With the visibility he gained today, I'm sure many people would be interested." Jake's mother looked at her with a mixture of hope and skepticism. "But who would buy drawings from a child?" "You'd be surprised," Sarah replied, feeling a determination grow within her. "Jake has an extraordinary talent. And with the story behind the drawings, I'm sure we can make this work." Mrs. Thompson looked thoughtful. "It's a bold idea, Sarah. It will require a lot of work and organization." "I know," Sarah nodded, "but I can't stand by watching one of my students go through this. I'll need help, of course. Maybe Mike." As she mentioned Mike's name, Sarah felt a flash of guilt. She knew she was becoming emotionally involved with him, and now she was about to drag him into a complicated situation. But something told her he would understand, that he would support her decision. As they left the principal's office with a preliminary plan in mind, Sarah spotted Jake. He was surrounded by classmates animatedly explaining one of his drawings. The scene reinforced her determination. That night after the fair closed, Sarah stayed behind, helping with the cleanup. Her mind was racing with ideas and concerns. It was then that she felt a hand on her shoulder. "Sarah, is everything okay?" Mike asked, his face a mask of concern. "You've seemed distant since you left the principal's office." Sarah looked at him, feeling a wave of emotions. "Mike, you won't believe what just happened." As she explained Jake's situation and her plan for the auction, she saw Mike's eyes widening more and more. When she finished, he enveloped her in a tight hug. "That's incredible, Sarah," he exclaimed. "You deserve this. Think of how many lives you can impact." Sarah pulled back a little, looking into Mike's eyes. "But what about us? This would mean a lot more work, maybe even travel." Mike gently held her face between his hands. "Hey, we're in this together, remember? No matter what you decide, I'll be by your side." At that moment, looking into the eyes of the man who had become not just her partner in life, but also her biggest supporter, Sarah felt a wave of courage and determination. "We're going to do this," she said, a smile forming on her lips. "We're going to change the world one child at a time." Mike laughed, pulling her in for another hug. "That's the spirit." In the days that followed, Sarah dove headfirst into preparations for the new project. Meetings with the administration, curriculum planning, selecting pilot schools. Each day brought new challenges and learnings. Jake and his family were also going through big changes. His father had found a new job and was attending therapy sessions. The relationship with his mother was slowly rebuilding, and Jake was flourishing with the renewed attention from both parents. One afternoon, as Sarah was working at her desk, she heard a soft knock on the door. It was Jake, holding a drawing. "Miss Sarah," he said shyly, "I made this for you." Sarah took the drawing, feeling tears form in her eyes. It was a representation of herself, surrounded by smiling children, with a bright rainbow in the background. "Oh, Jake," she whispered, "it's beautiful." The boy smiled, a glimmer of confidence in his eyes that wasn't there months ago. "It's for you to remember that, no matter where you go or how many other children you help, you'll always be my favorite teacher." Sarah pulled Jake into a hug, feeling her heart overflow with emotion. At that moment, she knew for certain that she was on the right path. As the sun set outside, casting a golden glow through the classroom window, Sarah thought about everything that had happened in the last few months. From a simple teacher trying to help a student, she had become the catalyst for a much bigger change. The path ahead would be challenging, she knew that. But with Mike's love, the support of her colleagues, and the inspiration from students like Jake, Sarah was ready to face any obstacle. 1 year had passed since that afternoon when Jake handed Sarah his drawing. Time flew by amidst challenges, achievements, and transformations that no one could have predicted. The Art and Social Transformation Project, now christened Colors of Hope, had expanded to 10 schools in the Chicago metropolitan area. Sarah, at the helm of the initiative, divided her time between coordinating the program, conducting workshops for teachers, and of course maintaining close contact with her original students. On a sunny Saturday morning, Sarah found herself in the courtyard of Lincoln Elementary School, where it all began. Around her, dozens of easels displayed artwork created by children from all the schools participating in the program. It was the day of the first annual Colors of Hope exhibition. As she adjusted a painting, Sarah felt a familiar hand on her shoulder. It was Mike, his smile as bright as the day they met. "Everything's ready, my love," he said, giving her a soft kiss. "The guests are already arriving." Sarah nodded, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement. Among the guests were authorities from the Board of Education, journalists, renowned artists, and most importantly, the families of the participating children. As the courtyard filled up, Sarah couldn't help but be moved as she saw familiar faces. Mrs. Thompson, now retired but still a beloved mentor. Mr. Davis, the inspector who had become one of the program's biggest advocates, and of course Jake and his family. Jake, now 11 years old, was no longer the shy and withdrawn boy from before. He walked confidently, explaining his works to interested visitors. His parents, hand in hand, watched him with evident pride. When it was time to give the opening speech, Sarah felt a lump in her throat. Looking at the gathered crowd, she saw not just the result of a year of hard work, but the promise of a better future. "Welcome to the first annual Colors of Hope exhibition," she began, her voice firm despite the emotion. "A year ago, we began this journey with a simple dream: to use art to transform lives. Today I see before me proof that dreams can come true when we work together." As Sarah spoke about the program's impact, improvements in academic performance, increased student self-esteem, strengthened family bonds, she saw tears in the eyes of many of those present. "But the true success of Colors of Hope isn't in the numbers or statistics," she continued. "It's in the smiles of children who have discovered their creative potential. It's in the confidence of parents who have learned to value their children's artistic expression. It's in the dedication of teachers who have embraced a new way of teaching and connecting." Sarah paused, her eyes meeting Mike's. He nodded encouragingly, and she knew it was time to share the news they had kept for weeks. "And it is with great joy that I announce that our Colors of Hope family is about to grow even more," she smiled, resting a hand on her belly. "Mike and I are expecting our first child." The news was received with applause and shouts of joy. Jake was the first to run up to Sarah, hugging her tightly. "Congratulations, Miss Sarah. Can I be the big brother?" Sarah laughed, moved. "Of course you can, Jake. You're already part of our family." As the celebration continued around her, Sarah found herself reflecting on the incredible journey that brought her here. From an insecure young teacher to a leader of a social transformation movement, every challenge, every obstacle had been an opportunity for growth. Later, as the exhibition was coming to an end and the sun was beginning to set, Sarah and Mike walked hand in hand through the nearly empty courtyard. They stopped in front of the mural where it all began, Jake's first drawing that caught Sarah's attention so long ago. "Who would have thought, huh?" Mike murmured, hugging her from behind. "Look where that small act of kindness led us." Sarah snuggled into his arms, feeling a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. "It's amazing how things unfold," she replied. "Sometimes all we need is to believe in a child's potential to trigger a wave of changes." As they watched the sky turn orange and pink, Sarah thought about the future, about the baby growing in her womb, about the hundreds of children whose lives would be touched by Colors of Hope, about the endless possibilities that stretched out before them. "You know what?" she said, turning to look into Mike's eyes. "I think we're just at the beginning of our story." Mike smiled, kissing her softly. "And what a wonderful story it will be." As they left the school that night, hand in hand and hearts full of love and hope, Sarah knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, as a family, as educators, as agents of change. The afternoon sun bathed the expansive garden of the new headquarters of the Colors of Hope Institute. Children of all ages ran and played, their laughter echoing in the air as they participated in various artistic activities spread throughout the space. Sarah, now 30 years old, observed the scene with a serene smile. Her son Michael, 4 years old, was sitting in a circle with other children, focused on a drawing he was making under the loving guidance of Jake, now a 16-year-old teenager and one of the Institute's most beloved instructors. "Who would have thought we'd come so far, huh?" Mike's voice pulled Sarah from her thoughts. He approached, carrying their youngest daughter Emma, just 1-year-old, in his arms. Sarah smiled, taking little Emma. "Sometimes it still feels like a dream," she replied, looking around. What had begun as a project in a few Chicago schools had transformed into a national movement. The Colors of Hope Institute now operated in all state capitals across the United States, offering art education programs for children in socially vulnerable situations. "Mummy, look what I made." Michael came running, proudly holding up his drawing. It was a colorful representation of a classroom, with smiling figures he explained were his school friends. "It's beautiful, my love," Sarah praised, feeling her heart swell with pride. In the background she saw Jake approach, now a tall and confident young man, so different from the shy boy she had met years ago. "He's got talent," Jake commented, smiling. "Just like his mum." Sarah laughed. "Oh, but he had a great teacher. How are your parents, Jake?" "They're great," he replied. "Dad's about to be promoted at his company, and Mum's loving her work as a volunteer here at the Institute." The transformation in Jake's family was just one of the many successes that Colors of Hope had achieved over the years. Entire families had been impacted, communities strengthened, and the power of art as a tool for social transformation had been proven time and time again. At that moment, Mrs. Thompson approached the group. Even in retirement, she continued to be a constant and beloved presence at the Institute. "Sarah, dear," she called, "the representatives from the Department of Education have arrived for the meeting." Sarah nodded, handing Emma back to Mike. "Duty calls," she smiled, giving her husband a quick kiss. "I'll see you later at home." As Sarah walked away to meet with the education officials, she couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey that had brought her to this point. From that first day in a run-down classroom to now leading a nationwide initiative, every challenge and triumph had shaped her into the person she was today. The meeting with the Department of Education representatives was productive and encouraging. They were impressed with the results of the Colors of Hope program and were discussing ways to implement similar initiatives in more schools across the country. As the meeting concluded and Sarah walked the representatives out, she spotted Jake in the garden, surrounded by a group of children. He was demonstrating a new painting technique, his face animated and passionate as he explained each step. The sight warmed Sarah's heart, reminding her of why she had started this journey in the first place. Later that evening, as Sarah and Mike put their children to bed, she found herself lost in thought. Mike noticed her contemplative mood and gently asked, "What's on your mind, love?" Sarah smiled, leaning into his embrace. "I was just thinking about how far we've come. From that little classroom to this. It's almost overwhelming sometimes." Mike nodded, understanding in his eyes. "It is pretty amazing. But you know what's even more amazing? The lives we've touched along the way. Jake, all those kids out there today, our own children, you've created a legacy, Sarah." Sarah felt a lump in her throat at Mike's words. "We've created a legacy," she corrected him. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." As they stood there, arms around each other, Sarah's mind drifted to the future. The Colors of Hope Institute was growing, expanding its reach and impact. There were talks of international collaborations, of bringing the program to underprivileged communities around the world. "You know," Sarah said softly, "I think our work is far from over. There's still so much we can do, so many children we can help." Mike grinned, a spark of excitement in his eyes. "I was hoping you'd say that. I've actually been thinking, what if we started a teacher training program? We could share our methods, help other educators implement art-based learning in their classrooms." Sarah's eyes lit up at the idea. "Mike, that's brilliant. We could reach so many more children that way, empower more teachers to make a difference." As they discussed the possibilities, their voices filled with enthusiasm and hope, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. The journey that had begun with a shy boy's drawing had grown into something far beyond her wildest dreams, and yet she knew there was still so much more to come. The next morning, as Sarah walked into the institute, she was greeted by the sound of children's laughter and the sight of colorful artwork adorning every wall. She paused for a moment, taking it all in, feeling a deep sense of gratitude and responsibility. A small hand tugged at her sleeve, and she looked down to see a young girl no more than 6 years old holding up a painting. "Ms. Sarah," the girl said shyly, "I made this for you. It's all of us at Colors of Hope." Sarah knelt down, carefully taking the painting. It was a vibrant explosion of colors, with stick figures of all sizes holding hands in a circle. In the center, a larger figure, presumably Sarah herself, stood with arms outstretched as if embracing the entire group. "This is beautiful," Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you so much. What's your name, sweetheart?" "Lily," the girl replied, beaming with pride. "Well, Lily," Sarah said, standing up and offering her hand to the child, "how would you like to help me hang this up in my office?" As they walked hand in hand towards her office, Sarah felt a familiar warmth in her chest, the same feeling she had experienced years ago when Jake first shared his art with her. It was a reminder that every child had a unique gift to offer the world, and it was her privilege to help them discover and nurture those gifts. The future stretched out before her, filled with endless possibilities and countless lives waiting to be touched by the power of art and education. And Sarah knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. As she hung Lily's painting on her office wall, right next to Jake's first drawing from all those years ago, Sarah silently renewed the promise she had made to herself on her first day of teaching, to change the world, one child at a time. And with each passing day, with every smile, every painting, and every life transformed, she was doing just that.